Are you one of the 98 million Americans who has prediabetes? Maybe your doctor mentioned it. At your last physical, they said your A1C was a little high, maybe 5.8 or 6.1. They told you to watch your diet and get more exercise. And you left the office. And you mostly forgot about it. Why? Because you feel perfectly fine. You don't have blurry vision. You don't have numbness in your feet. You're not thirsty all the time. You feel normal. So that diagnosis, that's fine. And it just feels like a warning, not a real problem. A problem for 10 or 20 years from now. I know how easy it is to think that way. As a doctor, I see it every single day. The feeling fine phase of prediabetes is the single most dangerous trap in modern medicine. Because what you cannot feel is the silent, microscopic war that high blood sugar is already waging on your body. In this video, we are going to do a deep dive into the one place this silent damage becomes visible, often years before you ever feel a single symptom. We're going to talk about a man who ignored his prediabetes until his optometrist saw something terrifying in the back of his eye. I'm going to show you exactly what they saw, the cotton wool spots and the microaneurysms that are the first whispers of diabetes. More importantly, I'm going to explain what this means for your entire body, your kidneys, your nerves, and your brain, and the steps you must take to stop this process right now.
The feeling fine trap. What high blood sugar is really doing. To understand what happens in the eye, you first have to understand why prediabetes is such a terrible name. I wish we could rename it. I'd call it early stage type 2 diabetes or vascular damage in progress. The pre part implies you don't have the disease yet. This is dangerously false. Prediabetes isn't a warning, it's the start of the disease. It is a state of chronically elevated blood sugar and, just as importantly, chronically elevated insulin. When your A1C is in the pre-diabetes range, 5.7% to 6.4%, it means that for months on end, your blood sugar has been running high. Not sky high, but high enough to do damage. Here's what's happening inside your body. You eat a meal, maybe cereal, a bagel, or even healthy oatmeal. It breaks down into sugar, glucose, and enters your bloodstream. Your pancreas releases insulin, which I want you to think of as a key. Insulin's job is to knock on the door of your muscle and liver cells, unlock them, and let the glucose inside to be used for energy. But with prediabetes, you have insulin resistance. Your cells have changed the locks. The key doesn't fit well anymore. The cells are resistant to insulin's message, so the sugar can't get in easily. What does your body do? It panics. It sees all this sugar still in the bloodstream, so it tells the pancreas, "We need more keys, send in the reserves." Your pancreas works overtime, pumping out 2, 3, even 10 times the normal amount of insulin to cram that sugar into the cells. This state, high sugar and high insulin, is the perfect storm for silent damage. The high insulin itself is inflammatory and promotes fat storage. But the sugar is the real toxin. I want you to stop thinking of glucose as energy and start thinking of it as shards of glass. When glucose levels are high, that sugar physically sticks to proteins in your bloodstream in a process called glycation. This creates harmful, sticky molecules called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These AGEs are like rust. They rust your insides. They attach to the lining of your blood vessels, the delicate single-cell layer called the endothelium, and make it stiff, brittle, and inflamed. This rusting process doesn't make a sound. It doesn't hurt. You can't feel it. But it's happening. And where does this damage show up first? It doesn't show up in the big, powerful arteries in your leg or your neck. It shows up in the tiniest, most delicate blood vessels in your entire body, the microscopic capillaries. And there are three main places where these tiny vessels are concentrated. The kidneys, in the filtering units called glomeruli. The nerves, the vasa nervorum that feed your nerve endings. The eyes, in the retina. The man in our title felt fine because his kidneys were still filtering and his nerves were still working. But the rust was already visible. And the only place in the entire human body where we can look inside and see these tiny blood vessels in real time without a single cut is the back of your eye. This is why your optometrist or ophthalmologist might be the very first person to diagnose your diabetes. It's not just about getting glasses. That annual dilated eye exam is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful, non-invasive screening tools we have for your entire cardiovascular health. When you go for that exam, they put in drops to dilate your pupils. Why? They're opening the curtain, your iris, so they can look through the window, your lens, at the movie screen in the very back of your eye. This movie screen is the retina. The retina is a paper-thin layer of nerve tissue. It is, quite literally, an extension of your brain. It's the tissue that senses light and sends signals to your brain, allowing you to see. To do this job, it is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your body. It demands a massive, rich blood supply. And it gets it from a delicate, branching network of tiny retinal arteries and veins. When your doctor looks in with their bright light and lens, a fundoscope, they are seeing your blood vessels live and in person. They are seeing the rust from that high blood sugar. And what's the very first thing we see? It's not blindness. It's not even blurry vision. It's a tiny red dot. Something so small you would never ever know it was there. We call it a microaneurysm. Let's break that down. Micro means tiny. An aneurysm is a ballooning or a weakened outpouching in the wall of a blood vessel. Remember those shards of glass, glycation, and the rust, ages, damaging your delicate vessel walls? Imagine a tiny, fragile garden hose. The rust makes one spot on that hose wall weak and brittle. The constant pressure of your blood pushes on that weak spot, and it begins to bulge. That tiny red balloon, that microaneurysm, is the first visible structural damage from high blood sugar. It is the canary in the coal mine. When I see this on an exam, I know two things immediately. Your blood sugar has been high enough for long enough to structurally change your blood vessels. What I am seeing in your eye is also happening in your kidneys and your nerves. These microaneurysms are weak, they're fragile, and they leak. They are not watertight. They ooze plasma, fats, and lipids from your blood into the surrounding retinal tissue. We call these hard exudates. Think of them as grease spots. This whole stage of the disease, a few microaneurysms, maybe some small leaks, is called mild non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, NPDR. And here's the most important part. At this stage, your vision is almost certainly perfect. 2020. You see fine. You read fine. You drive fine. You feel fine. But you are not fine. You have active structural vascular disease. The patient in our story, the man who ignored his pre-diabetes, was at this stage for years. He felt fine, but inside, the rust was spreading. The pressure was building. And then, his optometrist saw the next, more terrifying sign. The man in our story went for his checkup, and the optometrist put the lens to his eye, looked at that movie screen, and saw the telltale microaneurysms and grease spots. But then they saw something else. They saw small, white, fluffy-looking patches on his retina. To the untrained eye, they look harmless, like little bits of cotton. But to a doctor, these cotton wool spots are an alarm bell. A cotton wool spot is not a thing on the retina. It is the absence of something. It is a small patch of dead nerve tissue. It is a microstroke. Let me explain. As that rusting, glycation process continues, The blood vessel walls don't just get weak and leaky, they also get thick, stiff, and sticky. The blood itself becomes more sludgy. Platelets get stickier. Eventually, one of those tiny, delicate retinal arteries gets blocked. A microscopic clot forms, or the vessel walls become so thick and diseased that they sclerose and shut down. The blood flow stops. And all the nerve tissue downstream from that blockage, the tissue that was relying on that vessel for oxygen and nutrients, starves. It swells up and it dies. This is called ischemia, or an infarct. When we see it in the brain, we call it a stroke. When we see it in the heart, we call it a heart attack, a myocardial infarction. When we see it in the eye, we call it a cotton wool spot. It's a tiny, silent retinal infarction. This is the moment that changes everything for the patient. Because when I have to explain this, I sit them down and I say, "You can't feel this. Your vision is probably still fine because it's a microscopic stroke and your brain is filling in the gap. But I need you to understand, this is not an eye problem. This is a systemic disease that we can see. The fact that you are having microstrokes in your eye tells me with absolute certainty that this same process is happening in the blood vessels we cannot see. This is happening in your kidneys. This is what we call diabetic nephropathy. This rusting and blockage is killing the tiny filtering units in your kidneys one by one. And just like in the eye, you can't feel it until 80–90% of your kidney function is gone. That is how people end up on dialysis, completely blindsided. This is also happening in your nerves. The tiny vessels that feed your nerve endings, especially in your feet and hands, are getting clogged. The nerves are starving of oxygen. This is diabetic neuropathy. At first it's a tingling or burning, but as those nerves die, it becomes numbness. You no longer feel the pebble in your shoe. That pebble causes a sore. That sore gets infected, and because your high-sugar blood is poor at fighting infection and your damaged vessels can't deliver healing, and that sore never heals. That is how people end up with amputations. It all starts here, with the same process that creates a harmless little cotton wool spot in your eye. This is the terror of high blood sugar. It's a silent, relentless fire, and the cotton wool spot is the first wisp of smoke we can see from the outside. When a patient sees those pictures of their own eye, when they see the balloons, microaneurysms, and the microstrokes, cotton wool spots, the feeling fine illusion shatters. The question is no longer, why should I worry? It becomes, my God, doctor, what do I do right now? And this is where I get to give you the good news. Your body is on fire, yes, but at this stage, the fire is reversible. The damage from non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, NPDR, can often be halted and even repaired. Your body is an incredible healing machine if you remove the toxin that's causing the damage. The toxin is sugar. The problem is insulin resistance. But if you don't remove the toxin, the fire spreads. The body, in a desperate, misguided attempt to fix the problem, makes things infinitely worse. When the retina senses that its tissue is dying, those cotton wool spots, it panics. It screams, "I'm suffocating! I need more oxygen! I need more blood!" It releases a flood of a chemical called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. This is a powerful fertilizer that tells the body, grow new blood vessels. This is the proliferative stage. Proliferative diabetic retinopathy, PDR. But these new blood vessels are not the healthy, strong, organized vessels you were born with. They are abnormal, frail, crabgrass vessels. They are weak. They grow chaotically all over the surface of the retina and into the clear gel, the vitreous that fills your eye. And these crabgrass vessels bleed. A cough, a sneeze, or just a bad day. And one of them can burst, causing a vitreous hemorrhage. The patient will suddenly see a shower of black floaters or a red curtain falling over their vision as their eye fills with blood. This blood and inflammation creates scar tissue. This scar tissue then tightens and pulls on the retina like a cable. It pulls and pulls until it rips the movie screen right off the back of the eye. This is attractional retinal detachment. This is blindness. This is the end stage of the disease. And it all started years earlier with a pre-diabetes diagnosis that was ignored because the patient felt fine. So, how do we stop it? How do we rewind the clock for the man in our story? You don't just watch your diet. You aggressively reverse the disease. Starve the fire. The rust is from high blood sugar. You must get your blood sugar down. This means radically cutting back on the foods that spike it. Sugar, flour, processed carbohydrates, cereals, breads, and even healthy starches. You must stop feeding the fire. Fix the root cause. The problem isn't just sugar, it's insulin resistance. You need to lower your sky-high insulin levels. You do this by focusing your diet on the big three: protein, healthy fats, and fiber. These foods barely move your blood sugar and require very little insulin. This gives your gummy locks, your cell receptors, a break. They get a chance to become sensitive to insulin again. Stop guessing. Start measuring. You cannot fly blind. If you have this diagnosis, you must get a continuous glucose monitor, CGM. This is a small patch you wear that shows you, in real time on your phone, exactly what food does to your blood sugar. You will learn more from 2 weeks with a CGM than from 20 years of dieting. It's the single most powerful tool for reversing this condition. Never, ever skip your eye exam. This is non-negotiable. That dilated exam is your lifeline. It's the only way to know if your plan is working. It's the only way to catch the transition to the proliferative stage. If we catch that, we have treatments, laser injections, that can save your sight. But we can't treat what we can't see. The man in our story? He was lucky. He was terrified. But he was lucky. His optometrist caught it at the cotton wool spot stage. He saw the pictures, he changed his life, he got a CGM, he cut out sugar and processed carbs, he lost 40 pounds. And at his 1-year follow-up, the grease spots were gone. The microaneurysms were healing. No new cotton wool spots. He had put the fire out. He saved his own sight.
So, what does this all mean for you? First, I hope you now understand that. Prediabetes is not a problem. It's an active, ongoing disease. Feeling fine is the symptom, not the reassurance. Second, your annual dilated eye exam is not optional. It is not just for glasses. It is a life-saving scan of your kidneys, your nerves, and your brain, all visible through the window of your eye. If you found this video helpful, if this information clicked for you, please share it with someone you care about. Share it with anyone who you know has prediabetes or the type 2 diabetes. You might just be the wake-up call they need. You might just save their vision. And please, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. I release new, in-depth videos every single week to help you understand what's really happening inside your body and give you the tools to take back your health. Now, I want to hear from you. This is our consultation. What is your single biggest question or struggle when it comes to blood sugar, prediabetes, or what you've just learned about diabetic retinopathy? Leave your questions and your stories in the comments below. I will do my best to answer as many as I can. Thank you for watching. Take this seriously. Take action. You can stop this.